Listen to the harsh truth. This world is not a warm democracy. It is a cold, engineered order, forever split into two sides, the players and the pieces. You felt this extreme inequality, this core injustice, in every social interaction you've ever had. And maybe what torments you most isn't that it exists, but that you tried to deny it for so long. You told yourself, maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe they didn't mean it. But deep down, you knew the feeling was real, an invisible rule, cold, precise, and unforgiving. When you walk into a room, you often feel the chill of being unseen, an effect that comes directly from the absence of power you project onto yourself. You observe certain individuals, the players, who don't ask for attention, they command it. This isn't about pure competence, this is about primal social dominance, a Machiavellian presence signaling control. They are automatically granted access, strategic opportunities, and unquestioned respect. And you see it so clearly it's uncomfortable. They're never in a rush, they don't over-explain, and sometimes they don't even need to prove anything. They simply enter, and the air rearranges itself to make space. And what is your pathetic, predictable response? You fall into the useless script of the ordinary world. You confuse effort with impact. You work harder. You become painfully kind. An act of desperate flattery, hoping to buy influence through moral debt. You wonder why your measurable talent isn't enough. You wonder why your natural goodness is never rewarded. And be honest for once. Have you ever stood in front of the mirror and asked, what's wrong with you? Have you ever tried to fix yourself to fit into a world that never intended to embrace you? This isn't a failure of fate. It's a failure to understand the underlying mechanism of human dynamics. Your craving for external validation, crystal clear, has pushed away the very power you desire. This is the brutal, uncompromising law that polite society is designed to conceal. Power is fundamentally amoral. It doesn't pause to evaluate noble intentions, hard work, or purity of heart. It recognizes only one unchanging metric: your measurable leverage. If you have no utility, you are simply a piece to be moved. And hearing that may make you uncomfortable, but that discomfort is proof you're touching a truth you've been avoiding. Do you want to be respected for who you are, or are you living in a system that respects only what you can do for it? The currency of power. It sounds like a headline, but it's really a question. What currency are you paying with to enter the doors you crave? You made the classic rookie mistake, approaching the summit of power wearing the mask of friendship. You confuse a cold transactional relationship with a warm emotional bond. Those who truly hold the strings don't need more friends. They need assets. They need usable tools, leverage without emotional demands. And if you've ever wondered why someone can get close so quickly then turn cold just as fast, this is the answer. For them, closeness is only a temporary state to complete an objective, not a promise. They need mirrors, not to admire beauty, but to confirm their greatness, their vision and their absolute correctness. This is narcissistic supply that never runs dry. And have you noticed, some people only listen when the story circles back to them. They only respect you when you make them feel special. And most importantly, they need protection. Protection from exposure, from failure, and from their deepest fear, status anxiety. If you can't provide one of these three, benefit, validation, or a shield, you are a burden. The question isn't, are they bad, but what rules are they operating by, and are you walking into the game with a completely different rulebook? SURGRY on SELFRSP STK. If you truly want entry into the circle where consequential decisions are made, you must perform surgery on yourself without anesthesia. Destroy the part of you that screams for validation. It sounds extreme, but look directly at it. How many times has that part made you smaller? It has silenced you when you needed to speak, and made you talk too much when you should have kept things private. The need to be acknowledged is the source of all weakness and mental slavery. It is the mark of an inferiority complex, forcing you to seek permission to exist. And the most subtle trap is this. You think you're being polite, but in reality, you're asking permission to be present. Stop asking whether you're allowed to contribute, allowed to speak. Asking for permission is an act of surrender. It reveals that your locus of control still lives outside you. Only when you kill this small self, desperate to be loved, can you stand level with those who have fought, paid the price, and taken their power. This is the path of integrating the shadow, in Carl Jung's sense, accepting the ruthless self-governance within you. And understand this, self-governance doesn't mean becoming cold. It means no longer being dragged around by other people's eyes. The nature doesn't change. 5 centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli did not write The Prince as a handbook for evil, but as a field manual describing the cold truth of human nature. He was the first behavioral psychologist, brave enough to tear apart the illusions of goodwill. He saw clearly that at the core, human behavior is driven by 3 primitive, ruthless, self-serving motives: self-interest. This is survival instinct upgraded, always seeking maximum gain at minimum cost. Every outwardly generous act must be analyzed through the lens of, what do I get back? And if you've ever been hurt because someone was good to you and then vanished, ask yourself, did you judge them by words, instead of by the interest they were pursuing? Fear, especially fear of loss. People fear losing power, status, or safety more than they crave new success. That fear creates caution, cruelty, and the need for absolute control. And sometimes what you call them being difficult is simply fear of being destabilized. Vanity, the need to be admired, recognized, and remembered. This is the hidden engine, the lubricant behind every political compromise. Exploit someone's vanity, and you hold the key to their actions. The question is, have you seen that vanity, or are you still giving it a nicer name so you don't have to face it? The piece or the hand. If you choose to ignore these cold laws, if you cling to naive faith in absolute goodness, you will remain a pawn, a reactive object pushed by other people's will. But if you master the laws of self-interest, fear and vanity, if you dare to look straight into the shadow within yourself and within others, you become the hand that moves the pieces. The difference is not morality, it is adaptability and precise understanding of the battlefield. Choose clarity over comfort. Become useful instead of lovable. And now ask yourself, do you want to be liked by everyone or respected enough that no one can ignore you? In the next few minutes, we will expose and neutralize the lies implanted in your mind about what people call connection or networking. This isn't heartfelt advice, it's a cold dissection of motive. We will dig into 13 ruthless Machiavellian laws of influence and power control. Call them psychological tools, built from a brutal understanding of human nature, a blend of fear, ambition and hunger for recognition. When this script ends, you will no longer look at a powerful person and see a respectable superior or a monument. You will see a complex psychological structure, a machine of influence filled with gaps that need to be filled, and you will hold the only key that can decode it. I warn you. Once you see the strings, you can never return to the ignorance of a puppet. And from that moment, you can begin living like someone with choices, rather than someone who only reacts. Most people fail at the very first step, because they approach power with an open, begging hand, Empty pleading. They get trapped in the illusion that networking is about authenticity. Just be yourself. That is a vicious lie. Being yourself is a luxury, a privilege reserved for those already settled at the top of the pyramid, those who no longer need to prove their value. For those still climbing, those fighting to survive, networking is a strategic adaptation. It is the process of becoming the perfect mirror, reflecting exactly what the other person craves, or what they need to hide inside their shadow. You are not selling talent. You are selling a supplement to their lack. The goal is not to win them over with flattery. The goal is to become irreplaceable by filling a functional void, so completely that their system cannot run smoothly without your presence. This is exploiting the psychological effect called scarcity and dependence. So how do you perform this manipulation of perception without losing your core self? How do you influence the elite without turning into a cheap sycophant? The answer lies in a key psychological concept, a weakness shared by all who hold power: the void. To exploit and fill that void, to make them need you absolutely, you must first understand these 3 laws. And before we go deeper, I want you to pause, just for a beat, only a beat, to ask yourself, in your life, has there ever been a moment you felt you were being placed, like a piece on a board? Or a moment you suddenly realized, people only come to you when they need what you can provide? If you've lived that, share it in the comments in your own way. No need for a long story, just one sentence: I saw this happen here. Because when you say it out loud, you're no longer alone in that experience, and that too is a very quiet kind of power. Let's begin. Law 1, the ego trap. The first law, and perhaps the most dangerous: never outshine the master. The fatal mistake most people make is trying to prove themselves. When you enter the room of a powerful figure, your primitive ego takes over. You rush to show how smart you are. That is a dangerous illusion. That display doesn't create admiration. It creates insecurity in the mind of the one in power. Their identity isn't built on actual competence, but on the story they tell themselves: the strongest one, the most visionary one, the indispensable one. When you shine brighter, you trigger their ego defense mechanism. Machiavelli warned long ago, it is always dangerous to appear more capable than your superior. Comillas punto. When you make the master look lesser, you touch their shadow, the hidden core of fear and hunger for absolute power. They will remove you, not because you lack ability, but because you are too dangerous to their internal balance. Their discarding of you is an act of psychological cleansing. The optimal strategy: hide your strength, dim your light, so the master can blaze. This isn't weakness, it is masterful camouflage. Make yourself a mirror that reflects back only their greatness. When you offer a sharp idea, frame it subtly, as if it were a thought they had hinted at first. Use this tactic to build their self-satisfaction, to feed their vanity. By making the master feel superior, you successfully lower their entire mental defense system. You become safe, no longer categorized as a threat. Quietly, you are conducting surveillance, observing weaknesses, studying patterns of failure, and gradually securing key positions. Let them take the empty glory, the loud praise. You will silently take real power and influence. And ask yourself, do you want to shine once and get noticed, or endure until no one can replace you? Law 2. Hide your intentions. The second rule, the core of manipulation and self-protection: hide your intentions. A predictable person is already under control. In the chess game of power, showing your hand means volunteering to become a pawn. If I know exactly what you want, I hold the reins to steer you, to exploit your shadow. Sadly, most people wear their desires on their face. They broadcast desperation. And remember this, desperation is the ultimate repellent in the world of power. To connect with power, you must become a cipher, an unreadable number. Machiavelli taught, keep your friends close, but keep your intentions closer. Comillas punto. Talk about everything except business. The purpose isn't to be friendly, it's to redirect their focus, to lower their guard. Make them wonder why you're really there. Mystery creates attraction. When they can't identify what you want, the human mind, wired to hate ambiguity, starts working for you. They begin projecting their own desires onto you. They create a riddle, and they begin chasing you to solve it. The power has flipped. The original initiator is now the one being pulled in. Be friendly, open, charming. Let your outer layer shine. But keep the core of your ambition locked in a vault no one can access. You must become a charming predator. And if that phrase makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself, are you uncomfortable because it's wrong, or because it's true? Law 3. Appeal to self-interest. Never beg for mercy. The third law of power is brutal in its logic. Appeal to self-interest. Never beg for mercy. When you try to trigger pity by recounting your hardships, you commit a deadly mistake. Why? Because mercy isn't a virtue to the ambitious. It is a deep psychological burden. To them, pity is simply a subtraction in a net worth equation. Machiavelli gave an unchanging formula. Better to be needed than loved. Someone who likes you can forget you. Someone who needs you will make space for you and protect you. Abandon the role of the beggar. Accept the role of an indispensable asset. Never ask for favors. Structure carefully calculated transactions. Your focus must shift away from your empty needs, and onto their most acute pain points. Your physician is not someone seeking help, it is the precise tailored solution to their suffering. Declare, I've identified the fatal weakness in your expansion strategy, and I possess the ability to correct it. Self-interest is the only language universally understood. Speak it fluently, and every gilded door will open before you. Law 4. The art of strategic absence. We live in the era of pathological availability. You believe this obsessive devotion proves loyalty. But underneath, it screams fear. This is the fourth law, the art of strategic absence. Scarcity creates value. If you're always present, you become a commodity, mass-produced. Machiavelli warned that a prince who appears too often becomes ordinary, loses mystique, and invites contempt. When you appear, be an all-powerful force, and then, the moment the transaction is complete, disappear. Don't pick up on the first ring. This strategic withdrawal serves two razor-sharp psychological functions. First, it proves you have other options. Second, it triggers the Zeigarnik effect. The mechanism of the open loop. Your absence creates a gap in their mind. That psychological real estate is now occupied by you. When you finally agree to return, your presence is no longer an obvious obligation. It is a reward. Law 5. The mirror of Narcissus. The fifth law, the mirror of Narcissus. Every person you meet is a prisoner of their own ego. They want to be seen, validated, assured that their worldview is the only one that matters. Behind that hunger is a primitive fear, the fear of meaninglessness. To connect with power, you must end your existence as an independent entity. You must become a polished mirror, a high-quality mirror. Reflect them, but subtly upgrade the reflection. This requires the cold precision of a real psychologist. This is neurological synchronization at the highest level. Match their breathing, posture, and vocabulary. When you mirror effectively, the subconscious brain, the reptilian brain, labels you as like me. Like me means safe. You bypass the frontal lobe, the home of reason. You speak directly to their survival center. They will become addicted to your presence. Because you deliver the rarest commodity in human interaction, total understanding without being questioned. Law says, become the gatekeeper of information. Power is defined by an invisible currency: secrets. The sixth law, become the gatekeeper of information. The most powerful individuals often live in deep isolation. They are surrounded by yes people, producing confirmation bias. Their deepest fear is being blind to threats quietly growing. Your task is to bring them high value, refined intelligence. You are not a gossip. You are an intellectual spy. When you trade in secrets, you are no longer a subordinate. You become an accomplice. Machiavellian theory teaches that no bond is stronger than one forged in shared risk and shared silence. Final warning: your value isn't the secret you reveal today, it's the supply you control tomorrow. Never reveal all your sources. Maintain information exclusivity. And remember, you don't need to say much to be valuable. You need to say the one thing that makes them see. Law 7. The useful enemy. The seventh law, the law of the useful enemy. Nothing bonds two souls faster, stronger, and more permanently than a shared enemy. This is in-group/out-group bias. We don't just like people who hate what we hate. We need them to confirm that our fear is justified. Once you identify their target, your task is to align yourself with that hatred. Don't just agree, legitimize their irritation. You are helping them process and project their shadow onto a safe external object. You are giving them moral permission to be ruthless. You must create a cult-like narrative: we are the only ones who see the truth. This dynamic, as against the world, immediately creates unshakable loyalty. Law 8. PERFORM. Their illusion. Machiavelli recognized a foundational truth: people do not live in reality. They live in an illusion of who they should become. This is a survival defense, hiding the weaknesses and nakedness of the shadow. The gap between harsh reality and the ideal self creates a psychological opening you can exploit. Your task is not to confront, but to reinforce. Your calculation must be: identify the exact false self they are protecting. Then play the perfect supporting role to keep that stage standing. If they want to be the wise mentor, you must be the eager student. This is adrenaline injected directly into their ego deficit. If you are the one person who consistently reinforces this illusion, you become essential. They will protect you at any cost. Why? Because you are not a friend. You are the prop holding their self-image from collapsing. Law 9. EMOTIONAL. Alchemy. The most powerful individuals are not calm. They are high-voltage vectors of tension. Their inner world is a storm of anxiety and pressure. Most people only pour gasoline on that fire. They bring unresolved problems, trying to offload their own fear. To become untouchable, refuse to join that collective madness. Become the emotional anchor. Your job is alchemy. Absorb their chaotic primal energy, the projections of the screaming shadow inside, and reflect it back as absolute clarity. You don't provide data, you provide psychophysiological relief. These three phrases are the most seductive lullaby. I understand the threat. Here is the decisive solution. It's been handled. The phrase, "it's been handled," is the ultimate act of power empathy. You win what cannot be bought. Their peace of mind. Laudius, where the SHAPLASS form. When dealing with power, rigidity is a sentence you sign for yourself. Human nature craves consistency. Your ego wants a fixed definition of who you are. But shapelessness is the ultimate defense. If you have no clear form, you can't be hit. Shapelessness lets you slip through every lock and open every door. Your goal is to remove all friction. Use the similarity attraction principle. Make the other person unconditionally comfortable, so absorbing you into their inner world becomes as effortless as possible. The perfect shadow isn't someone who disappears. It's someone who blends flawlessly into the environment. Only when you have fully merged into the darkness can you step out and take the light. Law 1. Create dependence. This is Machiavelli's most basic law. Make yourself necessary to those above you. Your value is measured by how catastrophic it would be if you vanished. To create dependence, find the shadow zone in their work, tasks vital to survival, but dirty, complex, or so boring they hate touching them. This is establishing proprietary leverage points. You become the gateway keeper of a precious resource. Never make the naive mistake of handing over all your knowledge. Keep the skill esoteric. Dependence is about reducing the leader's cognitive load. Make them feel loss aversion. The moment you make that fear vivid, you win. You become a vital organ, and then you don't need to say, "Please look at me," they will come looking for you. Law 12. Control the options. Real power is always a cold chamber. It is never loud. Law 12. Control the options. The ultimate manipulator, the master of the dark, is the one who designs the stage, the one who writes the menu others must choose from. Too many choices creates decision fatigue. Your task is to create options with ruthless, precise calculation. By leveraging the framing effect, you set the story. This is the peak of the illusion of control. You allow them the emotional satisfaction of delivering the final verdict. But the rails of the choice were built by you. You are the architect designing the entire structure. They are only the approver. Law 13. Absolute autonomy. This is the ultimate paradox, the foundation behind every other power rule. To truly connect, to collaborate, you must reach the state of not needing them. Because if your soul depends on their approval, they will smell the scent of hunger. They will treat you like a fan. Real power only recognizes and bows to real power. You must be willing to stand up and walk away from the deal. Controlled indifference is the strongest weapon in your psychological arsenal. When you sit across from them, you must know in your spine, you will be fine without them. You are not there to beg, you are there to trade. That stability is a magnetic field. Flattery and submission breed contempt and deep suspicion. When they meet someone stable, someone who respects their position but does not worship them, they become fascinated. You must be the rock. Connect from wholeness, not from lack. Only then do you become a player, not a pawn. I know what you're thinking. This sounds cold. It sounds calculated. It sounds manipulative. Yes. It is. But truth doesn't need to be pink to exist. Truth is often the steel gray color of survival instinct. Where does this discomfort come from? It challenges what we call the just world fallacy, the naive belief that the universe rewards goodness and punishes deceit. But look at the structures running the world you live in. Do you think they were built on transparency and heartfelt hugs? Or were they built on strategy, leverage, and a deep understanding of human vulnerability? How easily people can be guided? This is the moment of choice. You can choose to maintain innocence, clinging to the idea that the world should be fair. You can sink into learned helplessness. Blaming the outside is always easier than admitting you lack tools for self-defense. Or you can take the wheel. Machiavelli was not a devil. He was honest. He was the first experimental psychologist. He stared into the abyss of human behavior without blinking. He saw clearly that we are driven by primitive forces. Fear of loss, the fragile ego, and a hunger for power hidden beneath the mask of safety. Using these laws is not abusing others. It is understanding them more deeply than they understand themselves. It is the ability to speak directly to Jung's shadow, the desires, envy, and fears they try to hide, rather than speaking only to the social mask they wear. When you apply these laws, the power dynamic shifts instantly. You are no longer invisible. You stop searching for an external savior and become the strategist of your own life. You realize powerful people are simply players who learned the rules earlier than you did. They are just better at exploiting information asymmetry and the crowd's cognitive laziness. They are just better waiting for a real player, someone who understands the nature of the game, to walk through the door. That person is you. And if you've listened this far, it means a part of you no longer wants to bow to ambiguity. A part of you wants to name the truth, so you stop blaming yourself in the dark. These 13 laws are not chains tying you to cruelty. They are keys that unlock the world. Mastery of psychology is not a destination. It is a daily practice. The world is designed to lull you back to sleep, make you compliant, turn you into a pawn serving someone else's interests. If you refuse to return to the flock, if you're willing to sharpen your mind until it cuts through noise and manipulation, then make the choice right now. Welcome to the inner circle. Coldness is the price of autonomy.